Hello everyone, welcome to this next session on Anubhav Learning Series. Thank you so much for appreciating Anubhav Learning Series and sending me a lot of emails, a lot of questions and feedback about your topics, which we covered by far in Learning Series. Please note that Anubhav Learning Series is specially designed for people who are already comfortable with SAP UI5 and Fiori, or those who have already taken my course on SAP UI5 and Fiori on Web IDE with XML view without any copy paste. In these learning series videos, we will cover advanced topics rather than leaving the basics behind, which are already covered in the training. We will cover here some more little advanced topics or topics which are not part of our training. So today's topic, we will be looking into a couple of interesting points. We will see how to display currency symbols instead of currency key as part of your table when you are applying a formatter. We will talk about how can you use custom styling in SAP UI5. To achieve that, we have an example to enable alternate row color for the UI5 table. We have used here sap.ui.table control. This was another question I was browsing other day the internet, and I found this question very interesting. Many of you have asked these questions in the past. Also, there are a lot of questions on SDN about it, and there are few satisfactory answer on the same or none. So this is the reason I thought why not to include this also in learning series. Then how to add dynamically a field to a simple form or adding a column to dynamically to the table control. And finally, we will discuss about what is UI5 Inspector. How can SAP UI5 Inspector helps us to analyze the structure of our application. So let us go ahead and now proceed and see how can we achieve all these tasks in one single session of learning series. So if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel by far, I would recommend you to please do that. Otherwise, you will miss these free videos on latest topics and different topics. So please hit the bell icon if you have not done that by far. So subscribing to the YouTube channel will definitely help you big time. Getting these free videos, it takes a lot of effort and time for me to create these videos. So please do share your comments. Please do share your likes. Please do share what do you feel about these topics. And also, if you have not subscribed to the course by far, I recommend you to do that before jumping to the learning series. I would highly recommend you to please go through my course first of all. Now, where can you access the learning series? As you already hear, you can go to onlinefiorytrainings.com, and there you have this free learning series available with the complete source code, presentation, and all the project data. So you can check it out, Anubhav Learning Series here on my website. And here you can see a lot of different free videos. If you feel that my contribution to you is helpful, please don't hesitate to donate something, because it takes a lot of effort for us to bring these videos for you. So in this, we will get all the list of these videos. Okay, so that's what will happen. So let's move on and see what we have done by far in our course. We have prepared a very simple example where we have tried all four types of bindings, including formatter function in UI5, as you're already aware. So this is our UI5 project, complete proper project structure we had built. And make sure that you don't do any copy paste of code when you're doing this. If you are doing copy paste of code, you are cheating yourself and you are not learning good things. Many times I observe people just simply go to internet, they copy paste the code, their output will come, but you will be suffered later point of time when a production issue hits, because that's not the right way of learning things. You will be caught easily if you're doing copy paste of code. Let's run this up, and it's a good practice that I would run this into another tab. So just go in there and press enter, and you would see I will get some data over here. All right, so that's my test data you can see, and there's a nice table here, SAP UI table control, and below there's a simple form, and next to that we have a couple of buttons. Yeah, So that's what we do have right now as part of our app. And let's start with each topic one by one. So the first topic is how to display currency symbol. So you can see, guys, on the top, we are able to see this real, euro, US dollars, Indian rupees, and all that. Instead of displaying this hard-coded currency key, it's my requirement to now display the currency symbol. Yeah. How can we display currency symbol? So we can easily do that, guys. It's pretty simple to achieve currency symbols with respect to each currency code. For that reason, as we already aware, we need to make use of formatter. So formatter are the functions which get supplied before the binding with the UI takes place from the model. I think you're already very much comfortable with the concept of formatter. So I will not spend more time on talking on formatter, rather than I will simply write a formatter function where we will be able to achieve this. Yeah. So let's go to the system and write a formatter function where we will be able to achieve this. So I'm going to go back and utils lifesaver.js. That's my formatter, and I have a format curr method already in here where we are just joining our currency and the salary value for the employee. So first thing which we will do is we will get the current browser locale language. So let's do that. So I will say var browser locale. And for that reason, I will talk to SAP UI5 core object. So let me zoom this up a little bit. Now I think it's visible for all of you, and double click here on the file in Web IDE to make it little visible for all of you. So that's what it's always good to do that. And now let's go ahead and call the SAP UI core library. And then from there, we will get the configuration and get the current login language. So sap.ui.getCore. It's a running instance of runtime application dot configuration dot get language. If you are skeptical about any API before being used, you can just always use this API first in the console, and that will give you the confidence that whether the API will work or not. You can see it gives me my current browser local language, which I have set already in the system. So that's my browser local language, English for US. Yeah, that's the current local language in the browser. And now using this local language, we need to pass this local language and get the local API of SAP UI5. So let's go and do that. I say var locale sap.ui.core locale. In this, I will be passing this browser code heading for language, whatever language we have received, an input parameter for this local API of SAP UI code. Once this is done, we will just ask it to give the locale data. So var locale data, and that's a next API which will receive the locale instance as the input parameter. So SAP UI core locale data. Make sure that you put the new keyword because we're creating a new object here. And then I will say here SAP UI core locale data. And pass here this locale function, locale variable as the input parameter. So once this is done, we are finally ready to just convert this to or get the currency symbol for a given currency. So this is a reusable API. Now, guys, if you put it in the formatter function, this will be called again and again and again. This code, this piece of code will be called again and again. So it's a good practice to not keep it over here, rather keep it in some other place where you can do initialization at once, and then you can reuse it again and again, because formatter function gets called for every single binding, right? So right now I'm just showing you here, then we'll move to the best practice also. So let's copy this locale data and we can get the currency code. So I have an API in this locale data called get currency symbol. And in this we'll pass the currency. And finally we get the currency key. So let's do that. The final response which I'm sending, I'm concatenating a currency with it with this API. Superb. Let's come back and see now. I can come back and just refresh the page, and you should now see, oops, it's not working. Something is wrong. Press F12 to check it out what's going wrong. F12 is your best friend. You can also do one thing. Just come and test this piece of code. So let's paste this piece of code into the console of the browser and just check this instance. If it is there, you can see the instance is there. Or locale data dot get currency. Symbol. And I'll just pass euro. And you see we are getting currency symbol from this API already. Something getting wrong. So let's check it out. Maybe it did not refresh properly. Sometimes it's a cache issue. Press F12. Right click on the refresh button and say empty cache and hard reload. Just do that. And now let's see what happens. So it's going to clean the cache because UI5 sometimes it caches the resources, static resources in your browser. However, you can see the URL parameter SAP cache buster is set to true. Still, it's not working. We are missing out something. Let me go and check. In the final response, we are just concatenating this currency symbol. Maybe what I'll do is I will just put here currency symbol. And I'm going to create a variable here equals to this. And now let me go and check that now. It's still not working. Something is wrong. So it's livesaver.js, which is our formatter. And are we missing new? So is this new keyword is the problem? No, but new keyword is not a problem. It's a method call, guys. It's not an object creation with get currency symbol. It's not an object creation. So it's not an issue with that. Maybe what I'll quickly do is I will just say no formatting. I will just directly concatenate salary with currency code. And I will print out this gentleman over here, which we were earlier doing, salary formatting, now not required. And simply concatenate the currency symbol with it and return that back. Let's come back. I think I'm running a wrong project. Let me just quickly go and check that. So livesaver.js. Oops, guys, I understood the problem. The problem is we are not calling this formatter. We have made the change inside the formatter, but we are not calling the formatter. So we have to call the formatter from the view. Let's go back to the view. And where is our currency value? Here it is. You can see salary currency. And you see, we have directly applied the salary and currency conversion. Salary and currency formatting directly at the view level. We have not used formatter. So we have to use formatter. And now let's put here formatter. That's the object of the formatter function, formatter library, function library, and now format curr function. So now what will happen? These parameters will be passed into the formatter function, both of these parameters, and whatever the formatter produces, that goes into the text property. So that's what formatter does. So let's come back and refresh now, and I am 90% sure that it's going to work. And there you go. Wow, nice. You can see it's getting the currency symbol. I think there is no currency symbol available for RYL currency. That's the reason it skipped it. But rest all the currencies, yen, rupees, dollar, euro, it has got all the values. Awesome. So that's what about the symbol, getting the symbol of the currency rather than getting directly the currency name. Awesome. Let's move on to the next requirement. What about if I want alternate table row color? Guys, it's a very interesting topic. What about if I want alter row color? Like when you go to PPT and try to insert a record in, try to insert a table in the PPT, you get this alternate row color, right? It's called zebra coloring. How can you achieve this in SAP UI5? You remember in our CSS chapter, we have achieved it with the help of pseudo class using CSS. But now how do we do here with SAP UI table, right? That's very interesting. How can we achieve with SAP UI table? So now we need to go and see how this can be achieved with SAP UI table. So for that reason, we have to apply custom CSS because there is no direct method provided by SAP UI5 framework to achieve this. We have to go and look at the custom method now. So custom CSS. So let's go ahead and first add a custom CSS. So what I'll do is I'll go back to Web IDE and I'm going to create a new folder, guys, first of all. And I will say new folder. And I'm going to call this as CSS folder. And let me add a new file inside. And I'll say my CSS.css file. You can name it anything of your choice. Make sure the extension has to be CSS. And now, guys, as we learned in CSS chapter, there are three ways of applying the style. The selector is of three types: the ID selector, the class name selector, and the tag name selector, right? So we will be applying class name based styling most of the time. So what I'll do is I will come back to the table control and I will check it out. What's the ID of my table control? And of course, you all know that in XML view, whenever you put an ID of a control, this ID will be pre-added with the view name. So view name gets automatically added. So also sometimes you don't even have ID of a control. So doing a style based on ID is always susceptible for or error prone, because if by any case if somebody changes the ID without knowing the uses of this ID, it will be having adverse effect on your application. It would lead to regression defects. So be careful that you try to minimize your coding as much as you can on the ID basis, rather than use more like other properties. Like in last class I told you about get source API, which you can use. So like a lot of these best practices we are covering in the course. Hope you have already observed some of those best practices, and you would avoid using those error prone methodologies to write the code, which will create problems. So we have to add a class name. So for that, what I'll do is I will just quickly go back to controller, and in the init method we will get this table object. So I will say this dot get view dot by ID. Please give me the table control object. And now inside this table control object, I would say please add style class. I'm going to say my class. So watch out, guys. As a result of this is how we can add a custom CSS class to our SAP UI5 control. This is the API, my style class, add style class, and this is our class name. Whatever you can put, I can put here Anubhav. So now what will happen is I will get this class name in the DOM of my UI element, which is created by UI5. Let's go back and check it out. I will come back to the UI and I will reload the UI and I will press F12. And let me just go to elements, DOM elements, and press Control F and search for Anubhav. Yeah. And you can see this Anubhav form, and voila, you can see, guys, system has now added along with this table control. This is our table control, and system has added an extra class called Anubhav in the DOM. That's so amazing. You can add an extra class of your choice as part of the standard DOM which SAP UI5 framework is building for your control. This has been added, and now I can use this Anubhav class to apply my custom CSS. Nice, isn't it? So let's go ahead and do that. So what we will do is we will go and tell, hey, for every alternate row inside this table control, every alternate table record, we want to apply a style over here. Let's go back and do that. I'm going to come here, my CSS, and I'll say dot Anubhav. That's last name is styling. Inside this Anubhav, you will see any table record. Nth child of this table record. This is a pseudo class of CSS which we learned in the past class. And now I'll say background color. Please make it maybe aqua. Yeah. And now next one is again Anubhav. That's based on class name. Table record. Nth child. That's a pseudo class which we learned in the CSS chapter already in the past. And I'll say background color. And I will say maybe I want line color. All right. That's what we are doing. We are directly giving the class name which we have added statically to our table control. Inside that, every table record element, look at the table record elements, look at its even and odd childs, and apply this style. Okay, so that's what you have to do. You can of course do it based on ID. So hashtag the exact ID which system has produced in the DOM, you have to put it, guys. So that's subjected to a change, but class name nobody will go and bother, right? People would probably change ID more as compared to the class name, though they will not touch the class name usually. ID can be changed very oftenly by another developer in your team, but they don't bother about class name. All right. So that's about my CSS. But how do you link the CSS with your page? So for that, you have to use the link tag in HTML. So let's come, and I have already done that. You can see link tag. Relation type is style sheet. It's in CSS folder, and my file name is mycss.css. And then the type of the file is text/CSS. So this is how we connect our CSS file in HTML page with an external CSS. All right, let's do that. And now we have our class name already added. We have our CSS file. We have linked the CSS file, external CSS file. What are we waiting for? Let's come back and test it. I'm going to come back and let me just refresh. And boom, there you go. Awesome, guys. That's how you can see we have got now an alternate table coloring inside of SAP UI5 table, bypassing the standard behavior and achieving this alternate row coloring. This looks awesome. This was one of the most interesting requirement which some of my students have got, and you guys have asked this since quite long. And here we are in Anubhav Learning Series video, solving your doubt, solving your problem. My main motto with the help of Anubhav Learning Series is to solve your problem. Any problem you have, guys, any issues you're facing in UI5, please drop an email to me on my email ID, anubhav.abap@gmail.com. You can always approach me. I'm approachable. I will definitely come back to you with some videos on your problems. That's my main motto. Promise me that you never copy paste the code and never learn from trainers who are teaching you copy paste, because copy paste is not the way forward. It's not the right way of learning. You will miss out the most important syntax, most important lines, most important symbols, which ideally you should understand to write an effective and a quality code. All right, let's move on to the next one. So we have seen alternate row color. What about if I want to add a column dynamically? It's very easy. Very easy to add a dynamic column inside of a table. Very easy. And on the same note, very easy to add a dynamic field inside of a simple form. You just need to understand the aggregation, how the aggregation is being currently done for the controls. So let's come back and check it out. What is the aggregation, how it is being done? So I will come back here and we will look at the main view. Look at the table. In the table, we have a columns aggregation. And inside these columns, we have multiple columns being added from a column class. So ultimately, if you want to add a dynamic column, you need to create a column object dynamically using SAP UI5 API in JavaScript, and then add that to the columns aggregation of table control. Okay, so what I'll do is I will just say, hey, I would like to probably add a toolbar in the table. And once I add a toolbar, in that toolbar, I'm going to add a button. And with that button, whenever that button is clicked, a dynamic column should get added to my table. Yeah, that's what we want. So let's create a toolbar first of all. Again, this is a good practice to use SAP UI5 SDK all the time. You have to refer UI5 SDK to find the right documentation and API, as explained in my course in detail. So let's go to API reference. And now we will just quickly go back to the API for table control. And let's check it out. Ours is SAP UI table library, and we will go to table control. And let's see if I can add a toolbar to my table. Yeah. So let's come back and check it. So let's go to the aggregations. And we have columns aggregation, which is default one. Do we have any kind of toolbar or something? Let me check. Yes, we have a toolbar control, which is of type SAP UI code toolbar class. Awesome. So we can use this one. So let's use this toolbar aggregation. So I'm going to come back to the table control and I will put here my table namespace. Bar is in small letters, and now I'm going to add a toolbar control. And inside this toolbar control, you can go inside toolbar and check its aggregation. So you can also search for toolbar here. So that's a toolbar control. And each toolbar contains further elements. The content is the default aggregation, and you can add any number of controls in this. So let's add a button. And this button, I'm going to name it as add a column. And on click of this button, sorry, it's not on click. Of course, you guys know it's a press event and on add column. Let's go and put this on add column in the controller. Okay, guys, a quick trick for all of you. If you don't want to do this manually, SAP Web IDE also offers you an amazing option. That option is called SAP UI5 layout editor. Maybe I will show you that next to all of you. First, let's proceed with the coding part, and then maybe we'll see the layout editor option as well, which makes it easy. But guys, try to understand that certain controls doesn't come under the preview of SAP UI layout editor. So it's always a good practice that you know entire XML view construction. If you're not comfortable with XML views, please join my course, fundamental course on SAP UI5 and Fiori. If you have no direction where to go, if you are clueless, your company is doing a lot of stuff around you, there are a lot of projects going on, but you're helpless to get into that project, I would recommend all of you to please watch at least one video of mine on YouTube. Go and check for a video called How to Become an SAP Full Stack Developer. Please watch this video. This is going to clarify you the direction for future. If you're clueless, most of the people who come to me, they're clueless. They have no clue what's going on in the market, where the industry is moving. I would strongly recommend you to please watch this video on the YouTube, searching for how to become a SAP full stack developer. This is an amazing video which will give you the right direction. So if you've not done that, please do that, and please subscribe to my channel if you have by far not done that, because you are going to miss such powerful videos if you not subscribe and hit the bell icon on the YouTube. All right, let's come back. So that's a toolbar and added a column button, add column button with a press. And I just come here with the press and say, let's add this over here, function, comma, and then. And now let's access the table control first of all. So as I mentioned, event, and we should not write a code which is dependent on ID. We should try to avoid writing ID dependent code. So let's get the table control object directly over here. Anyone, which API do you think will give me the table control object now? Anyone, can you tell me which API will give me the table control? Get source, perfect answer. Ajit has got the right answer. This is what we discussed in last class when I taught you the event object concept. Awesome. So since this add column, sorry guys, it won't give you because add column is actually part of this button. You see, this is an event part of the button, and button is part of toolbar. It's not a direct table event. It's not an event on table. It's an event on the button. It will give you the button object, not the table object. So we have to use by ID only to get that. So let's say this dot get view dot by ID. I'll say ID table. Please get me the table object. I'm going to add a column now. So first prepare your column which you need to add. So I will say call dynamic column, and I will say new SAP dot m dot column class. Sorry, SAP UI table column. That's a library name, and that has a column. And you all remember it has two aggregation. One is label, another is template. In the label aggregation, we will see SAP dot m dot text. It's a class, and I will the text of this column is the dynamic column. And I will say new SAP dot m dot column type is also going to be text. Okay, the template is going to be text, and I'll just save this. And let's just add this to the table now. First, dot add column. I'm sure there must be an API called add column, because table possesses a columns aggregation. Look at here. Columns is the aggregation of the table control. So definitely my table will have something called add column method. So maybe we can go and check in SDK for the table control. Let me come back to the table control. I'm going inside the SAP UI table control. Here we go. This is the table control. And inside of this table control, we will have something called aggregations. You can see this is a column segregation. There must be some method called add column or something. Yes, you see, the guess is right. Typically for every aggregation, you will have add or remove aggregation method. So you see add column method is in there. You can check the documentation and see what it does. It adds a column if it's required. Yeah, that's what it does. Let's come back. And I will just go back and column, and in this pass the code dynamically created column object. That's what we're gonna pass. Cool. That's your how to add a dynamic column. On click of this button every time a new dynamic column gets added to your table control, guys. Superb. Let's come back and check it out. Of course, there's no data because we're not doing any binding over here. So let's come back and test it. I'm going to refresh. It's possible to add is it possible to add two controls to a column? Yes, guys, it's definitely possible. Okay, you can add two controls to your template aggregation. Okay, but you have to use a combination, a control which encapsulates inside those two controls. I will show you in a minute. So now I say add column button. You see there's a toolbar and there's a add column button. I click on that. And voila, you can see my dynamic column has been added at the end of the table. You can click again, another dynamic column gets added. Wow, superb. Click again, another dynamic column gets added. Superb, that's what we wanted. So it's very easy when you know the concepts of aggregation. Very easy. On the same note, if you would like to add a dynamic field, it's also very, very similar. So maybe let me do the coding on the add column itself. So what I'll do is I will repeat the same steps. So what did we do here? We done first step, get the object of the table control. Step 2, create a brand new column object. Step 3, add the column to the table. So guys, this is the way of writing. This is the way of learning, guys, SAP UI5. If you have tried ample amount of times learning UI5 and not succeeded, stop doing copy paste. It's going to take more time initially, but you're going to learn UI5 pretty easily. Okay, never copy paste, guys. Initial effort is high. Later point of time, you will proud on yourself. All right, let's come back. Similarly, on the same step, step 1, get the simple form object. Now we are going to add the content inside simple form. So content is an aggregation, add content dynamically. That's step 3 perhaps. Step 2 is create dynamic content, create a label and a instance dynamically using JavaScript, and then finally add it. So let's do that for all simple. This start get view. Hope that's the idea of my form. Let me go and verify. Yes, it's Anubhav form. You can see that's the idea of our simple form. And now there's a content aggregation. So definitely there must be an add content API. And in this add content API, we are going to add our label. A new label I'm going to add. And inside this, once again, I'm going to add a new input field. Where are this label? Where is this input field? To create it, come on. O label equals to new sap.ui.label, sap.m.label control. And you can now give a text property for the label. And I'll say this is a dynamic field. And I can say var new sap.m.input field. And that's it. Oh, that's my input. And let's pass the input. And this is how we will edit. Let's do testing now. On add button, now it's going to add a dynamic column and a dynamic input field to your simple form. Let's come back, refresh the page. And now we are ready to experience this dynamic addition. Watch out. Right now we have only 4 input fields. I'm going to click on add button. Voila, you can see the dynamic field has been added now to the simple form along with the dynamic column on the top of the table. That's what was so simple, guys. And now, guys, let's do it little interesting. What I want is I don't want it to be hard-coded label. I want let the user give this label. Yeah, let the user give this label. So for that, what you can do is right now for simplicity, I'm using an inbuilt JavaScript function to accept a single character, single string input from the user to pass the label. Of course, moving on in the next subsequent classes, I will teach you how to also create a pop-up in SAP UI5. Okay, but right now, simplicity, we should ideally not do this in real time. I'm just using another JavaScript API to accept a dynamic text input from the user. Okay, that's what I will do. So this is a JavaScript API. It is part of window function, which you can use to accept a single input from the user. So we have to just use that API. So what that API does, it will give you a small pop-up to the user, and then using that simple pop, what will happen? User will give some data, and that data will become my label for these dynamic input fields, guys. That's what we have to do. Okay, so that's what we have to do. So let me just quickly check that API. So there is an API which JavaScript gives. It's called prompt. Something called prompt it is called. Okay. So just 1 second. I will check that API name. It's called prompt API. So you can ask user to prompt something. And then with that, you can say, yeah. So it's called window.prompt API. Whatever user enters, that value will come inside your field. So let's go and use that prompt API. So I'm going to come back. Every time user click on add column, I'm going to prompt user first of all with the prompt API. So I say var, and I'm going to say my text equals to window.prompt. You can also test this API and say enter your dynamic name. And this my text I'm going to use as a text, whatever prompt returns me as a text for my label for my column, label for my input field, rather than fixed hard-coded text. You can see, guys. So you can also test this prompt API directly because browser directly understands JavaScript as you know, me know. So let's do a testing, press F12, and I'm going to say console. And let me just go and the prompt API, and you see it gives you a prompt like this. Yeah. And now I will say, wow. You see it prints wow on the UI. Yeah, console. So that's what this prompt API does. It's going to give you the text. This text, you use it and create your dynamic fields based on that. Let's run this app now once again. It's going to be more interesting now. Rather than hard-coded text every time, we are going to get a nice prompted app. Let's click on add column. Prompt comes and I will say online Fiori trainings.com. That's my label. One. Enter, and voila. Can you see the label of my column is now column and the input field is onlinefiorytrainings.com. Superb. That's what we wanted, guys. So this is how you can achieve a dynamic edition of the column by the user, and also dynamic edition of the input fields. Moving to the last topic, when we learned about DOM structure in the UI5, we see SAP UI5 automatically creates the DOM structure for us. and it's very, very difficult to directly understand this DOM structure. Rather, you would be more interested to know which control was used to build this UI. So many times you see a Fiori application, your manager comes to you and say, hey, look at this Fiori app, or a functional consultant or a business comes to you as a developer. You are in a developer profile, and they will say, hey, can you please find out which control is used here? Can you use the same control also in our project, right? They may show you a standard Fiori app delivered by SAP, and they say, hey, can you investigate and find out which is this control on the UI which SAP used, and we would like to use the same control. So for that reason, we can use something called SAP UI5 Inspector. It's a free tool available in Chrome Store. So just search for UI5 Inspector, plugin, enter, and you can see UI5 Inspector Google Chrome plugin. Let's go inside this plugin, and now you can add this plugin to your Chrome browser. Yeah, it's free. So you see, I have already added this. That's the reason you will see the moment I added, it is now saying me to remove, and you can see on the top of the browser, it's visible also over here, but it's not active. Why? Because right now it don't find a UI5 DOM. The moment it finds a UI5 DOM, it becomes active. So now you see it's active here. I can click on this and it opens. It shows me the version of my current SAP UI5 which I'm using in my app. It gives me a link to the documentation kit. So that's what it does here. But magic is when you press F12. In the F12, you get an additional UI5 tab over here. Look at this tab, amazing. That's the UI5 tab which you got in there now. Yeah? So this UI5 tab can be used to investigate the elements properly. Let me just dock it in the right side so that I can show you side by side investigating this UI element. And now I can go to this UI5 tab, and you can see this is what is going to give you the complete control information. So you see, we have a content area, the complete page. Inside this content area, we have an XML view. Inside the XML view, we have the SAP UI table control. So here it's not the DOM. It's telling you all the properties of this control, which is the exact control the developer have used while creating the app. It was SAP UI table control, and all the properties of UI5 control are visible on the right hand side. So you can exactly replicate a control which is delivered by SAP by inspecting that control with the UI5 inspector, all its properties. Sometimes you are very confused. You look at a standard app or any app developed by your colleague, you are unable to achieve the similar result. How did they achieve it, right? Your manager expects you to achieve also same result what your colleagues have achieved. So for that, they will give you reference of others app. So when you go to others app, how do you know which control exactly was used, right? Very difficult for you to find. So UI5 inspector is here who will help you. You can see complete proper UI5 structure of your XML, exact XML structure is visible with the button, with the control names completely available. You can see control names are available. If you want to escape the namespace, you can do that. You see now namespace is not visible. Which library this control coming from, that's not visible. You can make it visible again. And for every single control, you can see all the properties. All the properties, guys, are visible over here. Superb. So that's what you can use via UI5 Inspector, a very powerful tool, very, very, very powerful tool for you to find out the things. You can see show attributes, don't show attributes. So like this, you can just enable, disable these options. You can go to bindings. You can check the bindings. So maybe I want to see what is the binding done for this gentleman, or what is the binding done for my table column. You can actually do that. So just go to your table control, go to your column, column. It's here. Select a text, and you can see here the binding for the path was done with this one. That's your label binding, because the labels are coming from I18N. Yeah. And then you can similarly see records are getting created, and for each record the binding is done with the subpath. You can see MP tab row 0, similarly in row 1, row 2, and so on. You can I think you can change this binding over here and see the result of this. Yeah, I hope so. We can just try this. Never tried it. Okay, we cannot change. At least you can see the binding mode. You can see here which model is used. You can see many times you have asked me, guys, Anubhav, how to check which model was used in the binding. How can we check that? This is where you can go and check the model information, that which control is bound to which model, which type of model, guys. Yeah. So that's an amazing stuff. That's a UI5 inspector, very powerful, very helpful tool, available for free for all of you. With that, it's a wrap on Anubhav Learning Series video. Thank you so much for being there with me. As usual, I really enjoy when you guys comment on my videos. It inspires me a lot to give you more and more content on like this on the internet. If you think this video has helped you, please share it with others. Please share and make it helpful for others to learn together in this new technology world, in this world of new SAP world, where there is lack of direction. A lot of people are struggling hard to learn things in the right direction. Share with them my full stack development video, which gives a good direction to them. With that, thank you so much once again. Have a nice day and goodbye.